Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and a tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another Roll20 review, my written and video view series. We take a look at the marketplace section of online role-playing website, roll20.net. With this video, I'll be reviewing the D&D 5e anthology, Candlekeep Mysteries, designed by Wizards of the Coast and adapted for Roll20. Review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you enjoy my videos, consider supporting me via patreon.com/RogueWatson. Shoutouts to Platinum patrons, Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Manuel, Wizard, Princess, Christopher, Star Loverly, Thomas, Ldugs92, Ian, James, Captain Mike, Jeremy, Adam, and Leroy. Gold patrons, RPG, Papercrafts, Charming Grenade, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Marcos, David Vicente, Gilberto, Dead Lizard, Lounge, Sam, Ross, Lumpy Spuds, Jerome, Patboy619, Sklenia, Nick, Farty McButterpants, and Blood Angel Baroness. Thank you all very much for your support. So Candlekeep Mysteries is a collection of 17 mini adventures, or we could call them modules. They are not as long as, say, Lost Mine of Phandelver, nor are they as long as the adapted adventures that you would find in Tales from the Yawning Portal, which took older adventures from previous editions and adapted them into 5th edition, and then just kind of put them together in a general, sort of loose story, though not really. Candlekeep Mysteries is all original new adventures designed for 5th edition using a bunch of different freelance designers. And the result is really impressive. You get a really good mix, a good variety of adventures and styles and themes and genres. They are tied together via the fact that they all have a book as their adventure hook, as their inciting incident. The book could be a monster in disguise. The book could be a portal to another world. The book could just be a dangerous curse that's affecting everyone. The book might have a genie attached to it, and that genie takes on an adventure. They all have that as their starting incident, and then from there, you go on an adventure. And it's called Candlekeep Mysteries. Candlekeep is, of course, the famous library fortress that is near Baldur's Gate, and one of the more iconic locations in the Sword Coast and in the Forgotten Realms, but most of the adventures don't actually take place in Candlekeep. Now, you could use this as a campaign if you wanted to have your entire campaign center around Candlekeep and just running in all these various... It would almost be comical because at that point, like, things just keep going wrong at Candlekeep constantly. They keep running into all these threats and dangers. That it almost gets to be like, look, why don't we have like a professional group that's here, which maybe that's your party, like you've been hired on as the official like adventurers of Candlekeep. So oddly enough, this is really not structured to be a campaign book. It's structured more to be a collection of modules that happen to run the level range from level 1 to level 16. I believe one of the levels is doubled, like 4, so it makes 17 total adventures. So technically, yes, you could run it as a campaign, but there's no narrative through line whatsoever to connect all of these adventures. Instead, they are basically drop-in modules that you can just drop into any campaign and use it depending on what level range you're looking for, what kind of themes you're looking for, what kind of monsters you want to use. And for that reason, it's a really, really great thing to get for your games, with a few important caveats, and I'm going to go over what those are. First of all, what's included when you actually purchase the bundle on Roll20. You get the 17 mini adventures that range from level 1 to 16. They're all organized separately in their own journal entries on the side here. You also get 27 grid maps. That's a lot of maps. Every single adventure has anywhere from 1 to 3 maps. There's one 100-foot map, one 40-foot map with subdivisions into 20-foot squares, 7 10-foot maps subdivided into 5-foot squares, and 18 5-foot maps. And that's a big thing when you're looking at maps, is does the scaling work? Because D&D 5e kind of falls apart if you're not using that 5e scaling. Thankfully, most of the maps do use that 5-foot scaling, and the ones that don't, the 7 10-foot maps, are subdivided into 5-foot squares, meaning you'll get tinier tokens, but the scaling still works. The other ones you're gonna have to kind of abstract, but those are only like 2 or 3 of those. We also get one gorgeous isometric map of Candlekeep, which I will show you in a second, which has a hilariously huge resolution, which again, I'll show that to you. It's a fantastic map. 2 non-gridded overland maps, over 150 NPCs, including over 40 named NPCs, all of which have stat block, token art, and handouts. I should say most, not all, because some of them do lack The token art, if Wizards didn't initially have token art for a certain kind of creature, then Roll20 does not try to create their own art. They just have some kind of words on there, and I'll show that to you as well. Over 40 player art handouts, including 18 books. As I mentioned, every adventure starts off with a book, and we get a picture of that book. Over 50 magic item handouts, most of which are from the Dungeon Master's Guide. There's not a lot of new content, but there is some. I think about a dozen new magic items. And of course, a lot of journal notes on Candlekeep's geography, history, and people, as well as any relevant supplemental materials such as Madness, random treasure tables, a Shadowfell from the Dungeon Master's Guide. Basically anything that would be relevant information to have for any of these adventures are included under supplemental materials. And that is what you get. So anytime there's a monster that appears in any of these adventures or a magic item, then you will get all of that token, that stat block, that handout, whatever it is, included in this module. Now, one big negative for me, and I imagine for a lot of folks, as I mentioned, I don't necessarily see this as a campaign. I see this as an anthology of modules that different DMs can grab and use. And I would presume to think that's what most DMs are looking for. You're not necessarily looking to run an entire campaign based in Candlekeep. Maybe you are, and you could do that. But I think what you're looking for is, okay, which of these adventures do I like? Which ones can I use? You know, do I want to use the cliffside dragon's lair that leads to the haunted cloud giant ruins as a dungeon for my 10th level players? And that's the only thing I want? Then that's great. You can just use that. The problem is in Roll20, when you purchase this, you purchase it as a bundle, and then you create a game that uses this entire, as if this were a campaign, like a Tomb of Annihilation or something. And what you get is what you're looking at right now, which is the full-on, like, everything is included. In other words, there's no way to specifically, as far as I'm aware, to specifically grab one of these modules and just add it onto your campaign, which would have been a huge help for this specific product because of the modular nature of these adventures. I would have much preferred the ability to have a drop-down menu, because Roll20 has that built in where you can select different things as add-ons, you know, certain map packs and things. If it's content that appears in the journal, you have to include it as add-on content, and you can do that with a little drop-down menu once you go into your game. But here you have to create this as a. Now, I may be wrong, but I think you have to create all of them as a group, which means you get the whole shebang, and the only way to then pick and choose what you want would be to go through and archive or delete everything that you don't want, including all of the maps. Pain in the butt. So that's a bummer, because I feel like a big advantage would have been to just pick and choose which modules you want, rather than just having to get the whole shebang-a-bang, which, as you can see, this was a blank slate that I just created with this module, and it fills it up quite a bit. I mean, this is a huge amount of content here with all the monsters, all the handouts, and everything else. But if you're running your own homebrew campaign, or you just want to add one of these modules to, you know, Rime of the Frost Maiden or something, then it's going to be a disaster, because it's going to add so much content. I mean, it's all going to appear under its own heading of Candlekeep Mysteries, and you can just open that one, but you'd have to go through and, like, archive everything else or delete it. Maybe I'm wrong in terms of how this works, but I know my way around Roll20. I've done it enough times where I think that is the case, and that is a bummer, specifically with this one, because I imagine more DMs are going to run this as a drop-in different modules, pick and choose, rather than I'm going to run this as a full, like, 1 through 15 campaign. If you are going to do that, then I'm interested to know, because that's not what spoke to me when I first read this, and not like, 'cause there's no narrative structure for that. There's no big villain or anything. It's just a selection of one-off modules, which is great. They're really good little modules that you could slide in there, but I don't think there's really no overarching campaign to be had here. If you're looking for my hot takes on individual adventures, I'm going to put out a separate video that's actually going to take a deeper dive into these adventures and even ranking them from my favorite to my least favorite for all 17 adventures. I'm not going to do that for the purposes of this review. I'm just going to kind of go over a few of them, show you examples of what the Roll20 one looks like. But I'm not going to, because there's just too many adventures here for me to try to cover within, you know, half an hour or whatever. So I'm not going to try to cover all of that. So if you're looking for my really deep dive into the adventures, look for that other video. But for now, we're just going to kind of cover more generically. But I will say, as my overarching opinion, they're very good adventures. Like, thumbs up in general. I'm a huge fan of these adventures. They run a really nice gamut of different styles, all the way from the level 1 to the level 16. Great content. Not all of them I was completely wowed with, but just I was very impressed overall with what we have to offer. So let's take a look at, for example, the level 1 dungeon, the Joy of Extra-Dimensional Spaces. So level 1, you really can't do much. You're typically just battling goblins in a cave or something. Get the hell out of level 1 as soon as possible. This one has a book that leads you to another area, which is not the only one that does that, certainly. There's a couple of them that actually transport you to different areas, but thankfully not all of them. You'd think that would be an overused conceit. Good old Mordenkainen on the cover here. By the way, as I mentioned, all the books have their own art. So everything you need in the one adventure is included in this one heading of all of these. So like this is the level 2 adventure, this is the level 3 adventure, and so on. So it's easy to kind of find all the information you need, minus all of the different monsters and the magic items. Those are all in their own section. Monsters is their own big section, magic items, and so on. But all of the text that you need is included in here. So all of them include information about the book, how the players get the book, and then where that plot actually leads. In this case, it leads you to a Mordenkainen's magnificent mansion as basically a dungeon. It's a dangerous, normally that's a high-level spell the players can cast to kind of rest somewhere and create this, hub place that they can safely have a long rest. But in this case, it is a dangerous place. You are trying to explore it and save, I believe. There's a lot of saving people, a lot of saving the different Avowed and the wizards that get kind of caught in here. So in this case, you get to explore a Mordenkainen's magnificent mission. Now, the other big caveat to this entire adventure, as I mentioned, there are over 20 maps. Every single adventure includes 1 to 3 maps, but the maps lack color completely, which is a big, big bummer for a virtual tabletop like Roll20. The map art styles actually differ quite a bit. They used a number of different cartographers here, including Tyson Logos and Mike Schley. So some of the veterans that you've seen before in other published 5e books. So the actual style can differ quite a bit between more detailed and less detailed, more abstracted. But none of them have color, no matter what. They're all this kind of black and white, almost like sandpapery background. Dynamic lighting is in place, which means when we click on this, you can see all of the walls are, have been edged out. You've got some doors you can open and close. The yellow is actually light sources, which means if you ever wanted to turn off the lights in an area for whatever reason, you can delete those, or it might be more safe to move them somewhere else. You can always bring it back. You can obviously copy and paste these, but that's why you see all these yellow balls, because they're all giving off different light sources. And I think I can show you how this looks by grabbing an NPC, giving him vision. And then, so this is what you would actually see if this was a player character's token. You can see it kind of dynamically adjusts. And then if you wanted to open and close different doors, and if you know about this, that's fine, but I'm just showing this for a couple folks that maybe haven't seen what this looks like. And then that kind of looks like what happens when you open a door. So all of the maps have dynamic lighting in place. Dynamic lighting, by the way, only available for Roll20 subscribers to actually utilize it. And then all of these tokens are in place according to what the map calls for. And these tokens all have their stat blocks built in. They're already tied together. A lot of them have handouts you can easily click on. You can show this handout to your players. That way they only see the picture and not the actual creature stat block, for example. And if you ever want more creatures, you can just grab them from the actual, just scroll all the way down, from the creatures here, and you want to throw an ape over here, then you can, and there's the ape. I just dragged that directly from here. You can also copy and paste it from the token page, which is just a giant alphabetized page of tokens. Roll20 has done this, I believe, for all of their published adventures. You can grab one of these, copy and paste it. It's also fun to just see the kind of size difference between a lot of different tokens, just for funsies. But again, you can just drag stuff from the actual journal if you'd like. And that's the level 1 mission. You're just exploring this magnificent mansion, and you're fighting. You're not fighting goblins. You're fighting mimic chairs and little homunculus chefs. There's a cool puzzle you have to solve with some telescopes, and then that unlocks this animated library that's all chained up that can attack the players and grapple them together. And then when the players defeat it, it leaves behind one of the books on a chain, which becomes a +1 flail, which is a book on the end, which is very flavorful and fun. It's a really fun level 1 dungeon that does something different than just fighting goblins in a cave. And that's the kind of idea that a lot of these dungeons create, is they offer things that are different than what I've seen before. They seem to offer memorable situations and events, and none of them are very lengthy. Some of them are more or less just a dungeon crawl, and others are, investigating. You travel all the way to Baldur's Gate, and you track down like who sold these monster books, and it becomes it's a tent. There's actually, I think, the level 2 adventure. It's a bunch of jackal-wares like running a merchant stall. And you really don't have to ever fight them. You can just kind of talk to them about it, and it's a big like social role-playing encounter, which is how that adventure pretty much plays out. So you get a really good variety of exploration and social role-playing and combat encounters. One thing I do love is that the NPCs tend to be very well developed. Not even like pages and pages of descriptions or anything, but like 1 or 2 sentences that are just really good sentences on describing who these people are. If I can find an example, let's see. I think this was the Chris Perkins adventure, by the way, the Book of the Raven, that included a lot of great notes on. Okay, so like this example, there's a group of were-ravens who have used this decrepit, ruined mansion. It's like a really creepy, cool past. Including a child's grave that is a teleport to the Shadowfell, which is really cool, and you end up, discovering more about what happened. And it's a bunch of were-ravens, and they've all got like these very descriptive descriptions, I guess, and their personality traits, ideals, bonds, flaws for all of these characters. And a lot of the adventures include that. There was really special attention paid toward any time named NPCs were used. Even if it was a group of them, like in this case, it was a whole bunch, and the jackal-wares are similarly in that other one I talked about. They're given all of these expansive notes, which is really helpful, and it helps you for role-playing purposes. And whenever there's you want to engage in that with your players, you want to know not necessarily an entire NPC's backstory, but just a few fun quirks about that. For example, this person, a short, stocky glass blower with a modest collection of homemade bottles and flasks. Madrina sees herself as the matriarch of the kindness. That's the group of the were-ravens. She speaks calmly and matter-of-factly and scolds those who display bad manners or foolish behavior. She can easily mimic the sound of breaking glass, which she likes to use to create a distraction. The whole thing is a haunted house with a bunch of were-ravens trying to scare the players away, and then it becomes they're actually not that hostile, and they can allow the players to explore when they need to when they actually meet them. But it's a fun little adventure, and in fact, I'm going to show you the map of this one, because I think this map art style is pretty good. This is the Chalet Brentifax. But see, this is, you can tell, I like the texture on here. This is a really nice looking map. There's just no color whatsoever, which is a huge bummer. Kind of empty too, obviously. There's just walls and doors, which is always disappointing. So on the one hand, yay, we get maps for everything. On the other hand, I don't think I'd want to use any. I mean, they're not the worst maps I've seen. Cough, Dragon Heist, cough. Used for a published 5e adventure, but it's a step down from Rime of the Frostmaiden, I'll say that. I will say also that already I'm seeing folks online on Reddit producing really good quality color maps that you can actually take and overlay right directly onto these maps and still use all of the dynamic lighting, which is incredibly cool. Like it keeps all of the dimensions and everything just fits exactly like it's a tracing of it. And then you can, because the dynamic lighting layer is placed on top of the map layer. So if you wanted to make your own map, you would have to redo the dynamic lighting. And supposedly with these maps that you can find, you can slap this, you can just put them right on there and still use the dynamic lighting that's already in place here, which is a huge time saver. It's still dumb that we have to go and do that. I really wish the official maps were of a quality that would work well for Roll20, but that's not what we're given here. And you should know about that, because that's, I think, a big factor of when you're buying things on Roll20. You want to have, the maps, the tokens, everything ready to go that you can play with. So that's the caveat there. The few ones, let's see, we've got this is a fun, this is a very underdeveloped part of the Chris Perkins adventure, Book of the Raven, where you get this really fun map that the players can follow along and actually get to the final area, but it's not, the whole thing is like, just flesh out encounters as you see it. Like, there's nothing to do on this actual map, but it's a nice map, and it's cool that Roll20 put it as an actual map layer. I do want to show, before I move on too much, the actual Candlekeep map that's included. This is the one, like, nice piece. So we get a bunch of information on Candlekeep. If you're really wanting to start your adventure in Candlekeep, I would also recommend Elminster's Candlekeep Companion, which was one of the top 10 products I reviewed last year, as well as Encounters in Candlekeep, which is a product I reviewed earlier this year. Both of which dive even deeper into the lore of Candlekeep. Obviously, this adventure explores Candlekeep quite a bit as well. You've got information about the Avowed, about the Emerald Gate, the fact that anybody coming into the Candlekeep has to, give some item to the actual library in order to gain admittance. And it has, of course, a giant location by location breakdown. Look at the size of this freaking awesome, gorgeous map. I'm at 100% zoom rate right now, so I'm going to back it out to about 50%, and I still can't fit this entire map. I have to scroll all. I mean, the resolution on this thing is insane. This is one of the best isometric maps I've seen, period. It's just amazing. And this is included as a map layer, so you could easily move your players onto this map. It'll probably take a while for them to load because it's a giant resolution, but I think Roll20 maps can only get so big anyway. And you could use this map as you roll around on Candlekeep, although, as I mentioned, not like very few of the adventures actually take place in Candlekeep. Although you could use Candlekeep as your base of operations for a campaign. This could be your Tristram or your Waterdeep or Baldur's Gate or whatever you want to use to springboard a lot of the other adventures, because they could start here. All the adventures start with a book, and obviously a library is a great place to find books. So you could still use this as your hub town, but just absolutely incredible map. You'll love to see it. In terms of other things I can show, I mean, let's see. There's hyperlinks whenever we need to reference a creature or a handout. So like this is something you can show your players. The actual what this mansion looks like. That's the Wereraven layer. That's an easy hyperlink, and you can just click show players. And of course, those are all included as player handouts at the end of the adventure. Anytime there's a creature mention, why does this one not mention creatures? There we go. So Scarecrow, you can click on that, and that gives you the hyperlink where, again, you click on the handout. You got all that information. Very, very easy. Everything is easily clickable. It all uses the character sheets from the Roll20 5e character sheets. Pretty easy to use. There's some macros included here. Not a whole lot, because there's not a lot of these adventures use like random encounter tables or anything like that. But there are some instances where you might want to have anytime there is a table of something, then you can include that this is actually whispered to the GM by default, but you can modify that if you want to. But a few adventures do have some tables that you can click on and use that as random. Also, some of the tokens are, let's see, what's an example? Actually, I guess I could go back to the Wereravens. Are rollable tokens, which means they can shift. Let's see, where is a Wereraven? I think they're over here in this corner. Let's grab you. Let's put you on the token layer. And what this means is, I gotta zoom back in so you can kind of see what you're looking at. So this is the Wereraven, and you can see multi-sided choose side, because Wereravens can transform into humans, their hybrid form, as well as just straight up ravens. And you can just do it like that, which is a really cool feature that Roll20 has, and it's already built in with all of the lycanthropes. And if there's any kind of like shape changer or anything, that would be included under there as a, technically it's a rollable token, but you're not really rolling anything, you're just kind of switching the sides around. So that's what you're going to get with Candlekeep Mysteries. I mean, there's a lot. I don't think there's a lot of new monsters. I think most of this is already from, the monster manual and, maybe Mordenkainen's or something. There's a few, like Animated Chained Library, the Broom. Where's those Skitter widget things? Kitty widgets and Skitter widgets are new. Maybe, if I had to guess, maybe around 20 or so new. Like every adventure, I think, tends to use, 2 or 3 new monsters. Actually, maybe not even that many. Some of them probably not any. If that was the case, it'd be more like 30 or more. I think it's probably closer to 20-ish new monsters, and the rest are all, stuff from the monster manual. Now, there are named NPCs that might have some unique stats about them, or they might just be a named version of, like, here's a Wereraven who's named this or something, or there's the cultists that are trying to launch one of the towers of Candlekeep into space, and they're all named after livestock and exports. You have pig, wheat, ram, sugar, and alpaca macadamia nut. I really do love a lot of these adventures. There's some really cool, fun ideas. It's probably the strength of this entire product is definitely the adventures. I can montage it and say. So you saw the Book of the Raven, which is this one, which leads to it's a treasure map. You actually find this map of mystery inside one of the books. And that can go really anywhere, but you're leaving, you follow that trail, you end up at this, kind of ruined, creepy, very Barovian, Chris Perkins-esque mansion that's, very dark past in history. The were-ravens are trying to scare you away, but ultimately they're not that hostile. And eventually you find your way, you battle a scarecrow, you get to the graveyard, you dig up the grave of the one child who died, and that teleports you to the Shadowfell, which is actually the second map. Where you fight a whole bunch of monsters. There's gargoyles, there's a bunch of ghouls that come out, there's a boss wight who's got a bunch of warhorse skeletons if you try to mess with his special saddle of the Cavalier magic item he's got. Just a really crazy big combat encounter at the end. And then there's a children's book that's like a nursery rhyme. This one is, I think it is is it Firefly Cellar? There's a lot of adventures. Okay, I think this is the one. This is Shemashim. Let's see, where are you? Shemshime's bedtime rhyme. So this one has a good pop art too. Art's really fun. This one is a very classic horror story where it's a book that's really creepy and evil and a lot of bad things are happening. Almost reminds me like Babadook or something. And you're in a cellar underneath in Candle. This is one of the few that take place in Candlekeep. And you're under quarantine because there's this curse that's activated that makes everybody have to sing incessantly, and it's like ritualistically summoning this really creepy creature, this guy right here, Shemashim. And meanwhile, there's a whole bunch of all these scripted events that happen that are just increasingly creepy and tough before it finally summons this creature, and you have to kill it in a certain way. It's just like a little horror story. That one, and honestly, the other one, Book of the Raven, would both be really great Halloween one-shots. And again, they're designed as these self-contained modules with just really fun, cool ideas. I mean, you've also got standard dungeon crawls. There's a temple of hags that run this bathhouse that supposedly heal you or whatever. And of course, that's the big twist, is they're fucking hags trying to make all these bargains with people and trap essences and magic paintings and everything. One of them, you're exploring a ruined cloud giant keep that's haunted by cloud giant ghosts, which is let's see, which one is that? This one, Cloud Giant's Keep. Good guess. And this is a gigundo map, by the way, which I get that cloud giants are big, but dang. And the boss fight's really cool. He's got an elemental cannon. He's trying to restore this entire cloud giant fortress and get it to fly. This is the one where it started with the book is actually attached to a genie, and the genie is the one that tells you about this quest. A really neat idea. And one of my personal favorites is the cult trying to launch a tower of Candlekeep into space, which is the barn door. What is this one called? I think it's Candlekeep Deconstruction. Yeah, spelled with K's. That can end with the towers shooting off into space because there's levers you can pull that do this reminds me like a Fallout quest. I think at least one of the Fallout games had a quest like this where I think it was maybe New Vegas, where there's a doomsday cult trying to leave the planet by starting this rocket ship that leads off into space. Just some really cool, nice variety of stuff. Some of it's goofy, some of it's serious and dark. Really something for everybody here. I guarantee you, you're going to like at least a couple of these adventures, if not most of them, because they're just very, very well designed. And I think they're just the perfect length. Also, these are not mini campaigns like Phandelver or Icespire Peak. They're shorter modules, similar to a lot of the ones that you would find on the DM's Guild. A lot of 20, 30, 40 page adventures that you would find there that just they've got a beginning, middle, and end. They've got a really nice trajectory, and they can be dropped. Importantly, they can be dropped into your ongoing adventure, which I think was the big point of this entire product, was something that you could take bits and pieces of these self-contained modules as fun little side quests that just have to do with you finding a magic book that leads you on this adventure. And I think it very much succeeds in that way. Let's go over my pros and cons for Candlekeep Mysteries. Pro, 17 well-designed modules that could drop into any campaign. Boom. Absolutely succeeds at providing a bunch of drop-in modules, which is frankly a lot of what I think a lot of DMs really wanted from Wizards as well. Pros, wonderful variety of adventure styles and level ranges. You cover everything from tier 1 through tier 3. Pretty nice, because not a lot of content supported by Wizards that actually goes beyond level 11 or 12. Pro, important NPCs have art, player handouts, and useful descriptions. There's a whole Dramatis Personae section that covers a lot of the most important NPCs, but also, when I went through earlier, just a lot of them have Some of them have the traits, bonds, flaws. Some of them just have like 1 or 2 descriptions, but they're all really good. There's a really good emphasis on creating NPCs with good like DM notes for DMs to be able to run those NPCs and make it fun without necessarily needing, you know, full-on paragraphs of information about them either. In Pro, over 2 dozen grid battle maps, most with proper 5-foot scaling. So this is going to be I'm going to do it both ways in terms of maps are going to be on my pros and my cons. The pro is that we get so many friggin' maps for every single thing that we need, which is a huge thumbs up. And some of the styles are better than others. I like the Schley ones. I don't like the Dyson Logos ones, but I love that we get all these maps. Cons, none of the maps have color, and that is a big bummer. Big bummer. It sucks. I really wish we had good color maps because that is a big difference. Now, as I mentioned, there's other ways you can get color maps, make them look much better in VTT, but it's always disappointing when I open this up, see all the maps, and see that it's just a bunch of that black and white, just, you know, no color whatsoever map. That looks sucky on a VTT. And the other con is, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the review, I really wish Roll20 had a way to purchase these a la carte. I wish because I think that was the case in Yawning Portal as well. I think they actually sold Yawning Portal even in smaller groups. It would have been awesome if there was some way to purchase these modules for like, you know, $5 a pop or so. You know, make it so if you want most of them, it's still worth getting the thing. And or even maybe connect them together. Say, here you can get all the tier 1 adventures for this much, and that way, or at the very least, have a way where if you do buy the whole package, at least let me add them individually if I want to as an option, or I can add the whole thing versus having to add this entire thing and as a full-on campaign, because I just don't think most DMs are going to actually run this as a full campaign. Instead, would rather run individual modules and just insert them throughout your already ongoing campaign. Final verdict, Candlekeep Mysteries is a delightful anthology of well-designed mini-adventures, providing a delicious sampler pack of the Sword Coast. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson. You can follow our own D&D adventures here on my YouTube channel. Thank you.